So you've been around Celebrate Recovery for a while, and you may not even be aware of this, but there is another wing, part of the global ministry that we're a part of called CPR. It's Celebrate Pastors Recovery. It's creating a safe space for people to face their hurts, hangups, and habits, even as pastors. And we've had several here on a local level take part in this. Today, I want to just unpack that and put a little bit of skin on what this wing of this beautiful global ministry does for our pastors. Today, we're talking about Celebrate Pastors Recovery. Welcome to Hope in Recovery. This is a Fellowship Celebrate Recovery podcast that helps with life change through our mental, emotional, spiritual, and relational health through life change stories and recovery topics, all centered around the Beatitudes and the Celebrate Recovery principles, where Jesus helps us to face our hurts, hangups, and habits and really walk in the newness of life so we can live out the purpose that He has for us, that these things that we've been avoiding have gotten us stuck. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with drugs and alcohol and perfectionism. I'm the ministry leader of Celebrate Recovery Fellowship Rogers, and been doing this 18 years now, and what a blessing to be able to throw life preservers and bring hope to a hurting community here in Northwest Arkansas. Hey, thanks for being with me again today. I'm so excited about today's topic to educate you maybe you're not aware of this ministry wing we call CPR, and we've had some pastors here on a local level take part of this. Our guest is not just a great comrade in ministry. I consider him a brother and a friend in Christ, and so excited for you to get to hear a little bit of my brother's heart. Josh Lawrence, he's actually a Celebrate Recovery pastor and also a teaching pastor at Southern Hills Baptist Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he's here representing CPR, Celebrate Pastors Recovery. Josh, so glad to have you here with us, man.
Rodney, thank you so much for having me. It's always an honor to be with you. I consider you a great friend too, and man, I'm just glad to be here. Yeah. And by the way, I'm a grateful believer in Jesus who struggles with pornography, fear, and selfishness. The name is Josh, and again, I'm thankful to be here.
I'm so glad you're here, brother, and I'm excited to talk about this. It's amazing. We've been doing this together a long time. I'm in my 18th ministry year. I don't know how long you've been doing Celebrate Recovery. A long time, I know.
Yeah, we've been doing Celebrate Recovery now for 21 years. Wow. And Rodney and I were state reps together at one time. That's back when I had hair, a lot of hair.
Yeah.
Now I'm a cue ball.
Yeah, I'm almost right there with you, man. I'm just still in denial. So, well, man, Celebrate Pastors Recovery. It is fascinating that Celebrate Recovery as a whole. We've been doing this. It's now in 35,000 churches, 40 countries, 25 different languages, and it's amazing when you bump into people that have never heard of Celebrate Recovery, and that's part of our mission to get the word out so more people can experience hope. But another level down is, CPR is one of those things that people for sure aren't as aware of, and it's growing, and we're seeing a lot of impact there. But man, let's start there. What is CPR? Describe that from your heart and your words. What is CPR?
Well, like you said, Rodney, it stands for Celebrate Pastors in Recovery, and what it is it's pastors in a group going through the journey begins. Those participant guides 1 through 4 that we all know when we do a step study. It is for pastors, it's for church staff, it is for spouses of staff and pastors. Of course, it's still gender specific groups like we always do. But it's just a wonderful tool that God has used, and I know our pastor's heart, me as a pastor's heart, just to bring healing, to bring motivation to keep going in ministry, because we know it's hard. But it's just pastors going through the 12-step curriculum, the wonderful 12-step curriculum. I think that's one of the discipleship tools the church has ever seen is the 12-step group, and we as pastors need discipleship too. So it's great.
Yeah. So here's a common question, Josh. I mean, just thinking about, Celebrate Recovery's safe. We have guidelines. We do things to keep it safe where any and all people can come in and share. What makes it different for a pastor? And I know that's a loaded question because I know the answer to this, but for our listeners, why don't we just ask our pastors just to join, the regular Celebrate Recovery step study? By the way, step study group is just following the curriculum of Celebrate Recovery and working through some books and answering questions through those 8 principles. But why have a separate group for pastors?
Well, a little backstory. Our CPR was founded by Pastor Hester. He's the senior pastor at Southern Hills where I serve. And we have been doing Celebrate Recovery for a long time in our church. And we would have Sundays where Celebrate Recovery testimonies would be shared. And of course, Friday nights, just tons of testimonies being shared. And everybody in our church could see the life change that was happening in so many people's lives. It was just, and it still today is just wonderful listening to those testimonies. But our pastor began to ask the question, well, I need that life change too. I mean, Jesus had changed him and everything, but he was going through his own personal crisis back then, especially with some staff members and even some members. And he goes, and his thought was, there is no way I could open up and be honest in a step study with some of our church members, especially when some of the problem maybe it was them. And so, he said, I'm just going to, there's a bunch of Celebrate Recoveries in Tulsa. I'm just going to put it out to those churches, their pastors. You want to be in a group together. And so they started meeting. It was Methodist, Baptist, other denominations in a group. And it just became such a lifeline for him. So pastors, I think, need a safe group. I'm in a CPR group right now, Rodney, and there are pastors in our group that there is no way they would feel safe doing a 12-step group with their church congregants, with some of the crises that are going on in their church. And so yesterday when I was doing the CPR group, I just said, what a blessing it is that we're all from different churches in this group, and we just can be honest and real about what's really going on in our lives. So it's really become a safe haven. For me, it's become a lifeline for many pastors that are participating in the CPR group. So a lot of pastors are thankful.
Yeah. And I think, it's good to state too, if you feel safe, jump into a regular group. We're not saying that you're not allowed in a regular group, but I think it's the closest thing for me to, sometimes when we say, well, we have family members coming to a recovery ministry, probably not a good idea for family members to be in the same small group, because it's like, well, we're real close, we're fine. Anything they share is going to be fine, but it's not the issue of do we love each other and are we close? It's creating safety. We don't want there to be anything that might prevent you from talking about pain. And we're not in there bashing people and blaming people, but we have to be honest about the pain, and that can be one of the most honoring things for our family. But our pastors, they're shepherding the church, and they're helping guide and kind of lead people. And that's probably the closest thing to our family of origin we can get, right? If I don't have safety to be able to talk about, it's like I feel overwhelmed about this and that or whatever, or kind of talking about the pain, the emotions that come up. I think about the pandemic, and Josh, you're a teaching pastor in a church as well. I felt it on our local level, but it was hard for pastors to walk through that pandemic. It's hard enough to be a pastor and then throw a pandemic in it. Man, you want to talk about having hurt. I don't know if you saw an increase just in that stuff coming forward for our pastors. But man, that's a lot for pastors to carry, and they need a safe place to talk about that pain, right?
Absolutely. If we really just stop and reflect for a minute, I mean, these past 3 years have been fatiguing, spiritually fatiguing, physically fatiguing, the mental and emotional toll that the pandemic had on churches. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we're not back to where we were, in 2019, and there's just all kinds of reasons for that. But even during the pandemic, we were wearing masks, but not only that though, people stopped coming. We had people that died of COVID, and or lost family members to COVID, and then that was a hot political time, and also a lot of social issues going on, racism and all that, and it was just such a hard time, and it was hard, very hard on all of our leadership at our church, and so now I think the need is greater than ever for pastors to be able to have a safe place to just kind of process that mental and emotional strain these past 3 years have been, especially. And Rodney, I think you bring up a great point. Yes, if you feel safe at your church, if a pastor feels safe at their church to go ahead and just join a regular step study, by all means, please do that. That's such a great point. I'm in a step study as well. I lead step studies at our church as well, and I feel safe with our church. We've been doing CR for a long time, and like you said, it's not groups are not a place to go and bash people or anything like that. But yes, but a lot of pastors do not feel safe at their church with what they're going through, and so that's part of the why we have CPR.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking about the order. We talk about the cycle. If you're interested in kind of hearing the cycle of hurts, hangups, and habits, you can look at an earlier podcast, maybe around 2 or 3. But it really, just thinking about what pastors go through, it's the same order. The hurt that's inflicted is use the pandemic just as an example. People dying, people leaving, people disagreeing with your leadership and all these things, and people close to you hurting and trying to shepherd them while you're trying to manage your own pain. And so the hurt that comes with that, we can develop some core beliefs about ourselves and our leadership, right? Sometimes we can make that our identity without even realizing it. And if these things are happening, is that a reflection on me? And so we're battling all these lies that the enemy will throw at pastors too. I'm always fascinated when people say, you struggle too as a pastor. And it's like, yeah, I'm a human being. Josh is a human being. We struggle, but just trying to make sense of the defenses and protections, even habits that can form for our pastors, like perfectionism and people pleasing and performance. Those can be lethal defenses and protections that fall in that habit category that can ultimately create a wedge in our own personal relationships. So important that we can face that ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely, Rodney. And, I think we all know that at the top or any kind of leadership position, pastors, but even Celebrate Recovery ministry leaders, you can feel so lonely and isolated, and I can find my identity in how many people are coming or what they think about me or what they think about the ministry, and just having the Celebrate Pastors Recovery Group just to be able to process, these hurts that I'm going through. And I don't know about you, Ronnie, but in the past 5 years or so, for me, I've struggled with a lot of bitterness and resentment in leadership. And I didn't think I was an unforgiving person, but my goodness, just the times have been so tense that even amongst staff, we can get on each other's nerves and annoy each other. And, we're fighting for each other's I we're just trying to fight to survive and all that. And so I I battle so much bitterness and resentment, but having that safe space of CPR and really, working through that fourth step, especially what's behind this bitterness, what's behind this resentment. And a lot of what I've realized in this current CPR group that I'm in right now is that I've had a lot of unmet expectations placed on people, especially on other staff, placed on the congregants. I'm like, well, shouldn't you have the same convictions and passions that I do? And shouldn't you love the same things I do? And just working through those unmet expectations. How come you're not here all the time like I am? All this stuff. That I put on people. It's really been helpful for me to look at that and even ask, do I have a right to those unmet expectations? And what I realize is, no, God has called me not to expect of people, but to actually love people.
Yeah.
And to be there for them. And I tell you what, this CPR group I'm in right now it's helped me become lighter as a minister and a lot more grateful for God's grace in my own life.
I love that. We're going to take a quick break right here. I'm enjoying this conversation with Josh as we've been unpacking CPR, Celebrate Pastors in Recovery. When we come back, we'll continue to kind of lean into those expectations and what would I experience if I went into a group. Maybe there's a pastor near you that you'd like to share this with. So we're going to continue the conversation with Josh when we come back. Stick with me. Hey, friends, can I just encourage you, I can't say it enough, if you've got some hurts, hangups, and habits, or maybe you know a pastor, somebody in ministry that might benefit from this ministry, we've got online CPR groups that they can take part in that. Would you just let them know about that? But if you want to jump into Celebrate Recovery yourself, just go to fellowshipcr.org. You can go to Fellowship Fayetteville, Fellowship Rogers. We have a great Connection Cafe meal at 6, and our general meeting starts at 7. Don't face this alone. Bring a friend and come see us this Friday night. You won't regret it. Well, welcome back. Talking with Josh Lawrence. And Josh, right before we went to break, we were talking about those expectations, and it's just fascinating. It's so good to humanize pastors. But the expectations, that's those unmet expectations and even unmet needs, emotional needs. Those can be indicators that will kind of get us stuck. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Josh, take me into a CPR group, and of course we're protecting anonymity and confidentiality. We're not getting the specifics, but what am I? If someone is sharing this with their pastor, and maybe this pastor's struggling right now, and they're even just kind of staying curious about the possibility, about opening up to the possibility of maybe jumping into a group with other pastors. And I know you have online groups going, which I love technology to be able to have pastors from all over the world connect. But take me inside that Zoom room, that physical room, if they're meeting locally. What am I going to experience when I walk into that room as a pastor? And you've experienced this multiple times. What will I experience?
Rodney, when you ask that question, one of the first things that comes to my mind is I'm really kind of taken back to the very first time I actually went to an open share group at Celebrate Recovery. And this was many years ago. And I grew up in the church, Rodney, and I was always used to other people sharing other people's struggles, not their own struggles. And so the first time I walked into an open share group at Celebrate Recovery, and I experienced the authenticity, the honesty of the men in that open share group, I was completely blown away. And back then, when I said, hi, I'm a believer in Jesus and I struggle with pornography, I couldn't believe I could say that in church. Well, fast forward many years later, I'm in the CPR group now, our first meeting, we open up and, I start talking about my struggles and my co-leader is talking about his struggles. And I could just see tears on other pastors' faces, just blown away themselves. It's like the first time they ever been to an open share group or the first time they ever been to a step study where, man, finally I can just be real about what's going on in my life. And so it has been so refreshing for so many pastors just to have that space where there's no judgment allowed, no condemnation allowed. CPR is in no way, it's not the purpose of it is not church discipline or something like that. I mean, I've been in pastors share groups, pastors step study. Let me tell you something. Pastors are messed up. Pastors are so messed up. I've heard more things in pastors group than I think I have in regular groups sometimes. But the purpose of CPR is redemptive recovery. It's not about church discipline. Anonymity and confidentiality are a must. That's what is that, guideline 4? We emphasize that in our first CPR meeting. Everyone agrees, hey, we're going to keep this confidential. And we just see healing after healing after healing in these groups. And Rodney, it's so much bigger than that, because what I've seen in these CPR groups, and it's happened to me personally, is that it actually makes the preachers better. It's like they become humble. They're more thankful for God's grace. I'm more thankful for God's grace. We're more vulnerable on stage. We're honest about our own struggles. There's a lot of times I'm preaching and I'm just sticking to I and me statements, and I forget to talk to the crowd because I'm just kind of owning my own hurts and stuff. And so, but the church, the congregants, the people in the church so appreciate that. It's like, oh my gosh, it gives me permission in the church to be real. And so, I'm just so thankful for what Pastor has started with the CPR. So
yeah, what I think is it's a beautiful thing, and it makes sense that there would be a lot of hurts that pastors would bring into that group. And when you think about what are we asking our pastors to do in the church, right? And what's the load on their shoulders that they're carrying? It would make sense that there's a lot. What I typically have seen through the years is pastors kind of buy into the narrative that it is about everyone else. That's what their job is. I mean, that is their job description, and it's so easy for themselves to kind of get lost in the shuffle. But I love that just speaking to that, Josh was talking about that guideline number 4, that we're actually, who you see here, what you say here, and what you hear here stays here. And that is a very central part of what keeps these going and healthy and growing. In fact, I love hearing the stories of here locally. We have pastors that have joined CPR groups online, and nobody knows about it until they say it. And I was talking to a buddy today. He's like, hey, I learned one of our core pastors has been through 2 Celebrate Pastors Recovery Group, and they didn't know that. And I love that because it wasn't posted on Facebook, oh, your pastor's in this group. And it was just a protected anonymity and confidentiality and just a safe space. And I can think of pastors even here locally that have been a part of your groups, and just incredible impact and life change. It makes them better pastors. It makes them better leaders in our own church, our own community. And so I'm just grateful for that process that CPR provides. So Josh, take me through, I want to speak to that person that, again, maybe they're listening to this, maybe they stumbled onto it themselves, or someone said, hey, this podcast with Josh and Rodney, I want you to check it out. And they're hurting. And I just kind of want to lean into that because pastors aren't used to people pastoring their heart. And so I just feel compelled in this moment just to pastor the pastor's heart. And they are hurting. They're listening to this. Even as they listen to these words, there's probably a lot kind of swimming around in their heart, and the shame, that shame grows in silence, right? Just keep it hidden. If anybody sees this, they're going to think different of me. What do you say to that pastor that maybe is hiding an addiction that's developed as a result of unresolved hurt. Maybe they've been believing some lies about themselves and unmet expectation, unmet emotional needs. They've disconnected from God, and those core relationships they've kind of hidden behind the curtain, so to speak. What do you say, Josh, as a guy who's walked through this yourself, as a pastor yourself, what do you say to that person to bring some encouragement and some hope to them?
I would say, Rodney, back kind of to what we all know, and that is God's grace really is amazing. It really, really is amazing. Like I said, over these past 4 or 5 years, I have really battled some very dark thoughts. I have battled quitting. I have battled thoughts that I couldn't even. I can't believe I'm a pastor thinking these things. What in the world is going? I should be further along. I should be, and I can just shame and guilt myself. But I tell you, when I read the scriptures and I read the Psalms, and I read how characters in the Bible were just pouring out their heart to God. Read Psalm 88. I mean, that is just it's one of the darkest scriptures you'll ever see. In fact, the psalm ends with "Darkness is my closest friend." That it's like that's a shot in the. It's a hard saying there, but God wanted that in the Bible. God wanted us to read that. And so what I would tell a pastor that maybe there's a secret addiction, maybe there's a lot of shame or negative self-talk, God absolutely loves you. He has a purpose for your life. I have sensed the closeness of God in my darkest thoughts more than I have in my thankful thoughts, if that makes sense. I've just sensed God saying, I'm with you, Josh. I'm speaking to you. I'm for you. Keep going. I've called you for a purpose. There's a great thing I'm doing through you and in you. And so don't give up on me. And so I would just tell pastors, I know what it feels like to want to quit. I know what it feels like to have overwhelming discouragement. And I'm not even a senior pastor. Maybe senior pastors listening to this going, well, he's just a teaching pastor or something. I know we all go through our different things, but I'm telling you, God loves you even in the darkness. And his grace really is amazing. And these CPR groups is a wonderful tool to not repress things or suppress, hide, run, live in guilt and shame. It's such a great tool to get a support team around you and to get some help and some healing, which is going to make you a better pastor.
Yeah, so. I love that. Well, and to be very overt as well. This is for spouses too. We want spouses to have a safe place, because sometimes spouses can that can be a pretty lonely place as well, right? As they're kind of behind the scenes, so to speak, and dealing with their own pain. So very important for you to hear that as well. But so, Josh, how do I? If I'm listening, I'm hearing your words, I'm taking that in, saying, okay, change is possible. God's grace is sufficient. Even in my stuff as a pastor, how do I get involved? How do I find a group near me so I can start this in my own backyard?
Well, we do have a website at cprpastors.com, cprpastors.com. And if you'll go to that site, you'll be able to fill out some information there, and we will get back with you. You can feel free to always email us as well. If you want to email me, my email is Josh, JOSH, at SHBC. That stands for Southern Hills Baptist Church. So SHBCTulsa.org. And just put CPR in the subject line, and I will get forward that to Pastor Hess, or I will deal with it myself. But one of us will get back with you on how to get into a group. But we're going to be forming more groups beginning in the fall. And the group I'm in now is a Zoom online group. And I tell you, the pastors in this group, there's 10 of us in this group. every one of them said, I didn't think this was going to work, being on Zoom online group. Every one of them thought that. But they're all now they can't wait to get on the call because we really are forming community. We got pastors from all around the United States in this group, and all different time zones even. And they so look forward to our meeting every week. It works. And we've developed some meaningful relationships in there. And so give that a try. And you might find it safer to do the Zoom online group actually than the on-person group. So just give that a try. But again, it's the main way to get signed up and find information is cprpastors.com.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the podcast comments, content for you so you can see that if you're listening and didn't didn't have a chance to write that down. You can go back and look at the description. But Josh, thanks, man. I'm so encouraged just knowing that this is out there. And man, if we can, our pastors are already pretty effective. If we can give them space to get healed and have safe space to process their hurts, hangups, and habits, and even relational struggles, just imagine how stronger the kingdom can and will be with healthy, vibrant pastors. So I'm grateful for you and Hess, and again, consider you friends and brothers, but thanks for being comrades in this ministry and what you're doing through CPR. It means a lot. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, Rodney. And I'm so thankful for your leadership and the way you're helping churches become a safe place as well. I really appreciate all that you do for the national team globally for Celebrate Recovery. And it's just been an honor to be on this call with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Josh. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you were as encouraged as I was hearing from my brother Josh. I just love his heart. Maybe you're not a pastor. If you are a pastor, you can go to cprpastors.com. Maybe somebody shared this with you, or maybe you're just listening and you want to jump into this process yourself. Go to fellowshipcr.org and join us on this journey. Don't try to face this. There is hope. No matter what the enemy's been whispering to you, there is always hope, and you're never too far gone. God can bring you back to this safe space we call recovery. And what a beautiful expression it is, and that we call it forever family. Did you know you're stuck with me for eternity? I'm sorry if that's bad news, but we're brothers and sisters in Christ, and I'm grateful to have you on this journey with me. Hey, thanks for being with me today. I hope you'll join me next time. Until then, God bless.